Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Podcast. A few housekeeping items before we get started. First, if you haven't left a review and you're enjoying the podcast, go ahead and leave a review on iTunes or Google. It helps us out a ton. I appreciate it. You don't even know. Second of all, I'm doing a business course through my consulting agency, Impossible X. It's a continuation of all the work we've done with funded startups and bootstrapped companies, and it's about building an online business in 2018. It's not necessarily like it sounds like a lot of online courses out there. It's not really the same thing. We focus a lot on mindset, a lot on strategy, and then also a lot on actually taking action. So the goal is in 4 weeks to go take you from an idea to execution and get started on your own online business. I'm not going to sell it too hard right now, but if you want to check it out, go ahead and check it out over on the business consulting site, impossiblex.com. And that's what we've got for today. Today's guest is Sinan Guler. He's a professional basketball player in Turkey. So he's got my dream job from when I was a little kid, and I had connected with him maybe a couple years ago, and I've been wanting to sit down and actually have a conversation with him for a long time about basketball, about life, about entrepreneurship, about venture-funded ideas that he's working on, and it's really, really interesting interview. I had an awesome time talking with Sinan, and I think learning about how his basketball journey kind of started to change the way he thought and change the way he approached different things in life is something that's really interesting that you don't necessarily think about. It's interesting to see him talk about the evolution of his career and how he had to consciously choose to work on certain things over different periods of his career in order to make things work. So I had a great time talking with him. Super chill guy. Really fun to just talk basketball and nerd out a little bit. Sorry if I get too geeky on the NBA stuff here, but it's a fun interview. I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get started. All right, and we're live. Today, my guest is Sinan Guler. I got that right?
Yes, you did. That is correct. That's as close as it can get from an American, so that's pretty good.
I was scared my American accent was going to come on too strong. But today, my guest is Sinan Guler. He's a basketball player for the world-renowned Fenerbahce team in the EuroLeague. If you're American, you might not know a whole lot about the Euro basketball team situation, but as I found out, and something we might talk about a little bit later, I found out who Fenerbahce was pretty quickly by questioning it to a bunch of angry Euro fans. So, Sinan, welcome to the Impossible Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I know that you and I were talking a long time to make this happen, and I'm glad we're making it happen right now.
Yeah, it was, I think we initially talked, 2 years ago, maybe? A year and a half at least. And just going back and forth and seeing what you were up to and some of the changes in careers that you've made. And it's good to finally connect.
Yes, I'm very glad. And I have been following up on all your stuff and the hiccups that you run into along the way, and I'm glad that you're still standing up pretty strong.
I'm still alive. But yeah, so I was really excited about today's interview because you do for a living what I always sort of wanted to this is what I wanted to do for the first, I want to say 22 years of my life, was play professional basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up as a kid outside Chicago, and I think it was a law outside Chicago that if you were any sort of athlete, you had to emulate Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, and you play basketball.
It's not outside of Chicago,
so that's
it's all over the world. I grew up imitate everything that he has been doing.
So when I don't even know when the first time I picked up a basketball was, but I played basically from Uh, how old can you play basketball? At like 7 years old, or as soon as I could play Park District basketball, I had a ball in my hands through high school and even through some like lower level community college level type basketball. And at some point in there, I realized I wasn't going to quite make the NBA. You don't get uh, a lot of 6'2" white dudes who can't jump and play pretty good defense making the NBA. So I realized that wasn't going to be happening. But you, my friend, have made that happen with quite a bit of success. And so I would love to jump into your story about like how you got into basketball, where that all came from, and just kind of have you take us through how you got started and how you made a career out of becoming a professional basketball player.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I think that the one joke that I do about how I got into basketball is I'm continuing the family business. My father
Okay.
used to play basketball until the beginning of '90s, and he has been like the point guard of the Turkish national team. Which, when these times between '80s and '90s and end of '70s, it's not a professional sport in Turkey or in Europe. It's semi-amateur where my father had to be a businessman on the side and play basketball at the same time. So it was kind of those times where he was one of the best players in Turkey. And he ended up having two sons, one older than me, Muratcan, who's also playing basketball right now. And we basically were born on basketball court and grew up in it. So for us, I think life without basketball was pretty hard to catch. I think as soon as my brother started playing basketball around 6 or 7, my mom kicked me out of the house because I was very energetic and hyperactive. So she said, "Go follow your brother, do whatever you want to do in the gym." So I started being in the basketball court around 4, 3.5, 4, just like that. And since then, I've been on it, and I have been blessed to make this professional job.
No, that's awesome. What's the setup for um, how basketball players are kind of developed and groomed in Europe versus the U.S. In the U.S., we have okay, you go to middle school, high school, AAU ball. Uh, Pretty much people they have an idea of who the NBA draft picks are going to be by the time who's going to be NBA ready towards the end of high
Yeah.
school. NBA scouts already kind of have an idea. A lot of people do one and done. You get a few people that go through the college system, but a lot of times those 4 year seniors aren't even as desirable as the 19-year-old that just went to school for 1 year. So I know in Europe it's quite a bit different, and a lot of times the European prospects are evaluated differently in the NBA. But as far as the developmental process, okay, you picked up a ball at 4 or 5. What did it look like from there? Where were you just playing on courts, around Turkey, or were you following your dad around, with his team and everything, or were you like in leagues learning fundamentals, doing, you know, uh, doing a little bit more organized basketball?
Um, I think the main difference between American sports and European sports in general is the grassroots programs. In the United States, as you said, from middle school you can start performing in school teams, and you end up, even like if you're talented or interested, you can play at least 4 sports in 1 year as a middle school or high school student. I know in high school it moves towards a 2 sport thing, and then in college you have to decide what kind of talent you have, and you move towards the sports that you're more capable of doing, or you have a chance of earning a scholarship. In Turkey, what we have is generally a sports clubs, and where me and my brother started playing is where my father was playing professionally, like at the highest level as of an age group. And when we started, it was a sports club connected to a school, a university in Turkey, but has no relationship as far as the university students could play in the team, but not many players actually managed to do that because as far as my experience goes, it's very hard to continue as school life with a professional level basketball playing. So we started playing basketball in a sports club. I played in that team until I was 16, and then I moved to Beşiktaş, which is one of the oldest sports club in Turkey, and it started off as a gymnastics clubs actually, and then after that moved to soccer, and it is one of the um, most rooted clubs in Turkey. I played there for another year in youth programs, and then I was a part of their professional team for a year. But at the age of 17, I wasn't strong enough, athletic enough. I didn't grow up to my like full height at that time at the age of 17, and I wasn't finding many options to for myself to be satisfied as the basketball that I was playing. So I
Hmm.
started looking for options on what can I do. Then throughout after that period, I went to a basketball camp that my father was running at the time. Um, it was a camp that was connected to the Turkish Basketball Federation, and they were bringing a lot of college coaches from United States so they can oversee the camp and teach coaches and players some fundamentals of basketball. And I met Joe Cravens of Weber State there. He used to coach Weber State when I ended up going to Utah, and he told me that I could be a decent player. I had a chance in the United States and in college basketball, although I was late to apply for anything for Weber State caliber team where D1 schools and NCAA has different rules and different approaches to process of admissions and everything. So he hooked me up with Salt Lake Community College in Salt Lake, and I ended up going there for 2 years, learning American and college basketball. And throughout that time, then I moved to Carroll College to a 4 year school in NIA, and it went on like that. So I had a chance to, in before becoming a real pro, I had a chance to get a taste of both European style of clubs and all that stuff, and at the same time some taste of college basketball at the same time too.
So that's really interesting because you see a lot of. I probably watch too much NBA. I don't really pay attention to any other sport other than the NBA. But you see a lot of talk about American prospects going over. The guys who just want to play kind of street ball and throw up shots tend to go over to China
Mm-hmm.
and where they can just go do whatever they want. But then you hear about if they're really serious about getting back into the league or they want to like actually play competitive basketball, they'll go back over to Europe. So I'm really curious on and you've seen a lot of the European players that have come over to the NBA be really successful because they have um, a really strong focus on fundamentals. And I'm curious from your perspective, kind of coming the other direction of what it's like. What are the main differences between, um, broadly uh, European basketball and American basketball, and then even college, the nuances between like maybe college basketball versus the club system that you're in,
Yeah.
and how that differs from a European perspective, because a lot of times we'll hear it from an American perspective, but it's different when you start in that club environment.
I think that from my time with my growing up, I think it changed a lot because now a lot of individual like trainers help American players grow in fundamental ways. But I must say this: I also, when I was younger, between the ages of I want to say 13 and 17, I went to a lot of basketball camps in the United States. I've been to like
Okay.
the five-star basketball camp. I've been to a couple of Michael Jordan basketball camps, one in Santa Barbara, one in Chicago. I went to Philadelphia 76ers basketball camp, some invitationals that Converse used to run back in the day. with now what Hoops Groups is doing. So I've seen a lot of kids at my age growing up in similar situations. And what I was seeing, fundamentally, Europe is ahead of American basketball until high school is over. Now, I have to put aside the great prospects like, um, the biggest example we can give is LeBron James, because he came right out of high school knowing that he was going to be a superstar. Um, Knowing that, like, the fundamental changes, we would, at those ages, at the age of 16, 17, we would play a lot better than the kids our age that are from America. But they have a quick catch up line when college years start, because in college, what I tend to meet, as far as coaches go, they're more inclined on creating, people, improving people's life, and that means that they teach not only fundamental basketball but also fundamental aspects of the life also. So a lot of catching up is done during college years, and I see that basketball becomes more fundamental in the United States when college basketball starts getting played. And after that, NBA is something, as far as the level of basketball and quickness of basketball goes, is something that's we cannot compare to anything else in the world right now. It's in the top level for sure. Now, if we look at the professional level and how the basketball is going, I think that the main differences of the top two leagues, NBA and EuroLeague, if we want to talk about it, is the tempo of the game is getting closer to NBA level in EuroLeague, but I think that NBA, EuroLeague, it like needs more physical knowledge of basketball. I think that because there are so many rules in the NBA that that I don't understand right now. Knowing some of them, I know that I couldn't survive in the rules in the NBA, because I know that there are some rules that does not belong in EuroLeague, and
Okay.
I think that creates a more physicality in some ways, and at the same time, I know that the athleticism of NBA is uncomparable to anything else. And I think one more thing that stands out in, EuroLeague, that is being used widely now, more and more in NBA, is the team cohesiveness and not relying on one or two players of the team, but running some kind of team system. I think that the best example for this is San Antonio Spurs, of course. But I know, like, even though the Warriors is like super quick team, since they're all superstars in the offensive side of the game, they know how to run together, they know how to share the ball, and they know how to run a defense that works out for their system. And I think that in Europe, this type of situation is more looked for in the teams and in the coming of the successes of the teams in Europe.
It's funny that you mentioned the Spurs, because the Spurs, I think more so than any other team in the NBA, explicitly take a lot of their tenets and their organizing principles from European teams. It seems like I think you hear Popovich, who is the I have to make sure I'm not going too fast for guys. If you're listening on the podcast, I might geek out a couple times about the NBA, so just hang on and I'll try to slow down if I get ahead of myself. But Greg Popovich, who's the coach of the San Antonio Spurs, talks a lot about how they brought over a lot of principles, I think, from the Argentinian team down in South America, from that Ginobili was a part of, but then also I think, like, more so than any other team, the Spurs are, I want to say, like half their team is international or something like that. And they've really kind of, one of the things that Popovich always talks about is that they're always looking for guys who are over themselves and that they buy into the team system and move the ball in the way. And if you watch Spurs basketball, they're always making that extra pass. They're always doing, one little extra thing. And you can kind of, it's not that the people aren't replaceable, but you can kind of plug and play people on a regular basis. And not see a huge fall off. Obviously, like there's a big um, the NBA is built around stars. It's built around people, specific players who can elevate your team to the next level. But the Spurs are kind of the one team in the NBA that has kind of bucked that mentality, and they said, we're gonna have. We're gonna have a bunch of people who are over themselves that are really good. They buy into the team system, and we can kind of plug and play them wherever we need to. And I think you're starting to see that, and it's interesting that you think, or that you're seeing the influence from the American side of things, come over there, because I think on some level you're seeing kind of a European or at least an international influence on kind of how NBA basketball is played in some
I
sense.
think that one thing that I had been experiencing with college during college times, our coach Gary Turcotte at Carroll College used to have phone calls with type of coaches that was running the same system in United States. So they're kind of like, I wouldn't say educating, but they're conversing about their systems and solutions to some problems they face and this and that in United States. And I think within the globalization, thanks to the internet, thanks to the games being live all over the place and everything, I think that possibility to expand your system, expand your knowledge, is right now from one end to the other side of the planet. So you don't have to look for it too close, and you can find something that you're looking for somewhere too far away from you. And I think everybody's affecting themselves with everybody um, in Europe, in the United States. I know that we're taking examples as far as the plays goes, as far as some kind of system goes, as far as the player talent goes. We're not only importing players from the United States because a lot of players come, as you mentioned. We're also um, implementing ideas that works in the NBA and could work in European situation in European cultures.
Yeah, that's it's funny how fast the ideas permeate
Mhm.
across the globe, and it doesn't really matter what that idea is. If it works, it tends to be picked up on. um and that's interesting. One of the things that I wanted to jump into was, you mentioned when you were coming to the States, or when you said you hadn't got into your full height at 17 or 18, and you weren't really happy with where you were as far as strength wise and all that, and you looked to come to the States. You did 4 years in the States at the two different colleges. When did you have an idea that um, you could play pro uh, back in Turkey? Was it immediately? Was your, hey, I'm going to go to the States and specifically spend the 4 years, get my degree, and then come right back? Was it, hey, I'm just looking for a place to play for the next couple of years, and I can do that in college, and then it just showed up later? Or what was that thinking? What was the mindset there? Um, as you came to the States to play for a little bit, but in the back of your mind, were you just saying, like, there's no chance that there's this is the only pathway that I'm doing. I'm playing pro ball, and there's no other options. What was your mindset? What was your goals? Or were you just saying, hey, I want to play for 4 years, and then I'm going to go get an office job or something like that?
Yeah, well, I did, even though I thought about the possibility of holding an office job, because that's basically why I went to college, because I need to get a degree to actually survive outside of basketball when needed. Um, I think the day I set foot in Salt Lake, the first night, I was thinking about coming back and playing pro no matter what. One thing that, other than the physical um, incapabilities, one thing that pushed me towards going to the United States was the ideas floating around under my name, throughout my name. As I mentioned, my father being somewhat of a legend of Turkish basketball, I was perceived more of Necati's son, my father's son, than my own entity.
Oh,
And I kind of wanted to forget that myself, so I could figure out what I am as far as basketball player goes. And at the same time, when I came back, I actually helped everybody else forget it also. Because when I came, okay, everybody was like, okay, there is, Necati's son, Muratcan's brother. But at the same time, I had a chance to create my character on the basketball court as soon as I arrived because I was an unknown player when I returned. So that helped me um, look at things without a lot of prejudice, I might say. And that helped me actually competing with my age players in college during those 4 years helped me come back and compete with anybody that I wanted to at the professional level. So I think it created a mindset that, okay, I always felt I was born to play basketball no matter what. Again, thanks to my father and the opportunities my father and my mother showed me. But at the same time, as soon as I came back, I had the mindset ready to become the best player I could be, and uh, I I aimed for NBA, of course, even though I was coming behind as far as professional life goes. Coming behind, you said about 6'2" and unathletic. I was a 6'3" athletic player. I knew it was hard, but I was trying my best to get to the top level that I can play basketball as quick as possible.
Okay. What was so two things there. One, you see a lot of people come with that bag. Like I say, baggage. Like it's a bad thing. Your dad is a great player. That is, gave you exposure to the game early on. That's an awesome thing. You see a lot of players not do well with that type of pressure because there are eyes on you early on. You'll see some players like I think an interesting contrast is Steph Curry, who everybody knows. His dad was Del Curry. He's an NBA player. He grew up around the game. He did really well. He's arguably one of the top 3 players in the NBA right now. But like, so some players do really well. Then you see people like Michael Jordan's kids never did anything. Like I think they might have played like really low level, maybe D1 college ball for a couple of years, but they didn't really build on that much. And so you see people take it a couple different ways. And this thing that sometimes people think is okay, maybe that's just like it gives him a leg up. Like, he's got the genetics, he's got the connections, he's got all these other things. And some people aren't able to turn that into something that you would expect them to. And so I'm curious, was it just the moving away and kind of becoming your own person that helped with that? Were there any like mindset tricks where you basically had to kind of play Jedi mind tricks on yourself, or were there any other things involved in that situation where you said, okay, I need to go, become my own person before I can come back here and, everyone else can kind of see me as my own person as well?
It wasn't a conscious decision for sure, because at the age of 18, knowing that, all of the kids at the age of 18 are full of themselves. They can talk all they want. Now I look at it, it's a different situation. But I didn't think that, but as soon as I returned and, as I start growing as a professional player in Turkey, I realized the 4 years I spent in the United States and 4 years away from my family, my social life, and everything solely focused on basketball helped me grow as a person a lot. It changed me. It changed my personal character more than I think it changed my basketball character. I think that's the main gain that I earned going there.
Okay. That's interesting. So as you're coming back, so you spend the 4 years in school here in the States, out west, like Montana. It was Montana and it was Salt Lake, right?
Salt Lake,
Those are the two spots.
Salt Lake first 2 years, Montana next 2 years. Yes.
Okay, so that's like quite a bit different than Turkey already. But so you come back and you said you're kind of gunning for the NBA. What was your plan? And so I'm assuming you're what, 21, 22 at that time?
When I returned, I was 23.
23.
Yeah.
And so and this was in
2006.
two, 2006. Okay. So you're still gunning for the NBA. What was kind of your plan? Like, how did you, see about going about that? And then how did you end up in the back in the Euro system?
Um, what like as soon as I see our season was over in Carroll College, I started to figure out how I can get myself to NBA tryouts and how I can proceed on finding some kind of solution in the United States. And I start talking with one basketball agent whom I met during the national championship, and we started doing some kind of like brainstorming on what to do. I knew my chances were low because one, we were not as successful as the previous. In my junior year, we finished in Final Four in national championship. In my senior year, we got eliminated in quarterfinals. So that kind of lowered my expectations in NBA level because from what I knew in the draft prospects, if you want to get in from NAIA league, you have to basically dominate the league all the way through. And not being able to do that, I had my hopes. I didn't have my hopes high at the time. And as soon as I realized that there were no options for me to stay, I returned and I signed with my brother's agents, and who they founded their offices next to our house at the beginning of their careers. They have been my brothers more than agents over the past 12 years, and I have been blessed to have them beside me in the making my career. And we start talking about our options, what to do, how we can find a good career pathway, or how we can find a good team. And when I returned to Turkey, I got into two tryouts, one with Galatasaray at the beginning and one with Darüşşafaka, which the team that I ended up signing for. And
Okay.
it was for me, it was a better fit at the time because the opportunity was a lot more for me to show myself. I could steal a lot of playing time from players who are my age, younger players, some older players, but I had a very viable option to steal a decent amount of playing time at that team. And for me, I think one more important thing was with today's currency, I was basically making around $600 a month
Okay.
10 years ago.
Okay.
So I think that coming back and earning some kind of money that is not crazy amount of money uh, created some kind of humbleness and at the same time some kind of hungriness side by side because I knew that I needed to prove myself and I need to believe in myself. So I think that that option was very good fit for me. And so I signed with Darüşşafaka, and that started my path on what I would say the luckiest 10 years of my life as far as career goes because I got some opportunities that not many people have the chance to. In about 2 years, I was a national team player. In my fourth year back, I played in the World Championship, played against the greats of United States in the World Championship finals, and so on. And it has been for me, including my college years. I think that I end up making the right choices in my life as far as basketball goes, and it helped me. As I said before, it helped me more than basketball. It helped me grow as a person.
So one of the things I want to touch on, because I think this is actually really interesting, is I don't know, are salary records in the European system public?
I think so. I
When
think
players are signed, do they have
yeah.
an idea of like, because that's one thing everybody always says, like, I can't believe you gave him that contract or whatever. But is can you give me an idea? So you signed, you said you signed at like $600 a month,
Yeah.
which it's like money, and you're getting paid to play basketball, which is awesome. But at the same point, it's not like a $15 million a year NBA contract or
Mhm.
something like that. But there is a range, right? Like, and I'm curious what that range is to, what you know, I have a point I'm getting to, but I'm curious what the range is on some of those European contracts. Because I know you can go to China and they'll pay like, some random guy like Jimmer Fredette makes $5 million or something like that, or J.R. Smith makes $3 million
Yeah.
for 4 months or something like that. And so I'm curious what the earning potential is in the EuroLeague, and if it's just varying based on the player's star potential, or if there's kind of a median salary range that a lot of people kind of fall into.
I think that although there is no salary cap or some kind of system that NBA uses here in Europe, if we want to talk about EuroLeague especially, I think that if you're not you could make between $250,000 and I think the most paid player right now is making around $4 million. So there is a wide range, but at the same time, that all depends on the team's location, the team's economic opportunities, the sponsors around them, etc. All this stuff. Like if you want to talk about my team, Fenerbahce, right now, I think our team budget this year is around $30 million, and we have quite like two or three more teams in a similar range. And I think the least in EuroLeague right now should be around $6 or $8 million. I'm not quite sure. I haven't really checked on it too much, but I think that the least amount of team would be have the high parts of eight or nines, or maybe right around $10 or $11 million as yearly budget. In other teams, like for example in Turkish league, this varies a lot more, of course, and it's all depending on the league sponsors and the individual sponsors that the team or the city can find. But for EuroLeague, I think that would answer your question. I know that not many players get up to what Fredette is making, but we do have quite the talent that comes up to that type of salary also.
So the thing I wanted to point out was, when you first took your, the first job, and I've talked about this with kind of job opportunities in the past, is like kind of how I started my career was I took a huge discount. I almost got paid nothing to get the skills and the opportunities to kind of showcase what I could do, and then use those to kind of elevate my earning potential over time. And I think it's interesting that you kind of took the same approach in your basketball career. Was you took $600 a month. That's not a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an opportunity, and you turn that into playing from it. I think it's fair to say Fenerbahce is kind of the most well-known team in Europe. That's kind of like you guys are the only ones that have beat an NBA team multiple times or something like that. Like those are the stats
I don't know.
those are the headlines that I've
I don't
read.
know about the NBA story, but if you look at it right now, we are at the top four teams or five teams that's been sustainable to come to the Final Four level in the past 5 or 6 years. Every time, I know that Fenerbahce made to the Final Four last 4 years and won it the last year. So I think that shows a lot of character in the team in itself.
And just the reputation. You said it was one of the older ones.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see that people tend to get really overzealous when looking at okay, you could have had an attitude coming back to Turkey or something, saying, hey, maybe still have a shot at the NBA, maybe not, but while I'm here, I'm just gonna try to even sacrifice, like you're like, oh, $600 isn't a month isn't that much, but maybe I can get like 1,000 or $1,500, but then you'd end up sitting on the bench, or you'd have an opportunity that wasn't as good for you to show the long-term potential. And by having that humility to take a lower salary in exchange for the opportunity, you exponentially grew your long-term earning potential.
Mm-hmm.
And not just about money, but like the teams you've been a part of, and being captain of the national team and all these other things. Like that doesn't happen unless you have the humility and um, willingness to bet on yourself. Um,
Exactly. And I think
and
and I
I
think
think that's interesting.
and I think, the bet started with leaving home and going to Salt Lake, because I remember, like, this is one story that I enjoy telling a lot, because I remember getting on a plane with my father around the time when the World Championship in Indianapolis was happening. So me and my father went to Salt Lake together. Next morning, he watched our practice and then left for Indianapolis to watch the World Championship to return to Istanbul. And I ended up staying with, from my perspective, was a high school soap opera, because I would see these people who I would watch on TV as athlete jocks. Now I look at it like that, and I would try to get used to living with them for the next year or so. And around that time, one thing that I looked at as a concern was being homesick. And I think basketball helped me over overcome that fear of missing home, missing my friends and everything, because I was focused solely on basketball and improve myself and trying to get better than the teammate next to me so I can earn some playing time.
Very cool. As far as once you got back to Turkey and you took this took this initial contract, and we decided earlier that I'm not even going to try to pronounce
Darüşşafaka. I'll
this team's
pronounce it for you.
name. Um, so once you took that team, um, what what was your game like at that point? Like, what type of player were you? You know, early on versus now, and then two, kind of what was your strategy for kind of working your way, um, up the ranks, or kind of over continually improving um, your opportunities that were available to you.
I would start again from college and before, actually, because
Okay.
at the time when I was ready to go for college without YouTube or anything, I used to download a lot of Jason Williams videos, the top tens and
Okay.
everything. So after imitating Jordan a lot on a hoop in my bedroom, I start I start imitating Jason Williams in real basketball, and this included the hairdo. I couldn't do tattoos at the age of 15 or 16, but I could do everything that he was doing on the basketball court. At least I tried. And
Okay.
as soon as I got to college and start playing in a team that had some kind of system, I realized turning the ball over while trying to make a fancy pass was not going to help me play on a team. Then I start figuring out what kind of physical attributes I have to earn those times. And over the year and a half, I end up being, the best defender on the team in Salt Lake, which got me my second opportunity at Carroll College, where I earned back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year and etc., which helped me create an opportunity to, make my player character in Turkey. As soon as I arrived to Turkey, I start showing again my physical abilities, my athletic abilities, and my energy on the defensive side of the things, which I might add, when I returned from college basketball back to European and Turkish basketball, I needed to learn a lot of the basketball sense, which I didn't have much in the beginning. But I had all the sense what I can put on the court as far as energy goes, and that energy most of the time I spent, pressuring the point guard or denying their best player from taking the ball, or make sure that he's taking the bad shot when I'm guarding him, stuff like that. So from the beginning, I created myself a challenge of showing my physical abilities on the court as much as possible. From now then on, you know, from Darüşşafaka, I went to play for Beşiktaş again, where I played 2.5 years before college. I played with one of the best coaches in Turkey, one of the best Turkish coaches in Europe, Ergin Ataman for the first time, where again I was solely picked on that team to show my energy, to show my athleticism, to show my defensive side of things. And that was my role on the team mostly. When I was on the game, I was guarding the best player of the opponent team, trying to slow them down or make them take a bad shot, and etc. Which then, same coach moved to FSP Sen, now Anadolu Efes, and picked me with him again, where I played 5 years in total,
Okay.
with several different coaches. But again, throughout those years, I end up again being a role player. Um, was not taking full responsibility because most of the time we would have some kind of European or American star in the scoring side or in the responsibility side, or I played with few best point guards of Turkish basketball history around the time in the same team, both in national team and both in league club teams. So in FS, I think towards the end, I was moving towards more some kind of responsible side, but mostly I was on the teams with the role of defensive mindset initially. Then after the fifth year, around 2012 or 13, I forgot the years now, I moved to Galatasaray, played there for 4 years, where my first year I end up again with the similar role of defense, energy, and make sure that I have some kind of streak on shooting. I wasn't the best shooter all the time. I'm not the best shooter right now, also, but I made sure that I was making the shot when the time comes. Um,
Gotcha.
so in Galatasaray, maybe first year and a half, I was more of a role player, and then towards the end of the second year and on, I became more of a leader of the team with the age coming, with the responsibilities increasing, and with the role and relationship that I have with the coach. So I end up, after the second year, I end up the captain of the team, and at that point, I was also one of the candidates for national team captain. And I think that my national team career is parallel to the team career that I have as far as the role goes. Like I was mostly a role player with defensive mindset at first, and then make sure that I use a lot of my energy on the court for defensive purposes. And then towards the end of the years coming, I was taking more responsibility on the offensive side as well.
I like the way that you talked about kind of observing your own game and then editing it, like for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
as you progressed. You said, okay, I wanted to emulate Jason Williams, so I worked on dribbling, passing, all this other stuff, but then I quickly realized that that also brought up a lot of turnovers. So we got to take that out, and then we got to bring other things in like defense, energy, and kind of actively. Maybe editing is a good word for that.
Yeah.
Like editing your own game and saying, okay, what is going to be helpful here? What does the team need? Okay, we have an American star over here now. What can I do to, if I'm not going to be getting the shots, what else can I do on the floor to, make sure I have a spot? And I think that's always, I think that's probably my biggest uh, issue with my younger self thinking about how I play basketball. I was like, you just didn't really think. You had an idea of what you could do, and then you didn't edit that. Like it was relatively static from early on, and I didn't think dynamically enough about, okay, what's changing on the floor now, what needs to be adjusted for. And I like that you brought that up because it's kind of I think about that a lot in entrepreneurial terms, and to see you kind of taking that same type of mindset and applying it to a basketball court is kind of interesting.
Well, I think we're gonna get into entrepreneurship pretty soon, but I might add, I'm 34 right now, and I'm still doing the same thing because now I did change another team. I transferred to Fenerbahce from Galatasaray, and I think that the one of the main things with the change is the systems of the two coaches that I played with. I played with Ataman, who had more more of a setup situation where we all knew what was going on as far as the players, where they're going to be and everything. And now I'm working with Obradovic, which is one of the best coaches in Europe. Again, one of the like most decorated coaches for sure. He won 9 EuroLeagues in 13 different Final Fours, and I think that his system and rules are a lot different than what Ataman used to play with. And now when I look at it, I need to change what type of player I am. I need to change um, what type of contribution that I'm going to make it to the team, because I know that are some of the talents that I have does not apply to the system here, to the teammates here, and to the requirements here. So it is a shift that I think that with age, one thing that I might say is I cannot accept what I've done and um, copy it over and over again to do something else in the year comes ahead. I have to adapt to the system around me. I have to adapt to the people around me. I have to adapt to the situation or environment around me. And I think that that's the one thing that would keep anybody alive in basketball for sure, and in this situation with entrepreneurship, definitely. I think that's the one of the biggest gains anybody can get from uh, this conversation, if they're listening, is being not accepting and relying on what you have, and making sure that you can adapt and improve on everything that you have been doing in the past.
No, definitely. As far as when did you kind of have a realization that the NBA wasn't going to be in the cards? When was that, like after the first couple of years, or was that just like were you kind of holding out on it, or what was the thought there?
Uh, I had two time periods for that. One is the last lockout time, where I actually was planning to go to summer league that summer, and when the lockout happened, the summer league didn't happen, so I couldn't go. And I think that was my real chance on introducing myself to NBA coaches and showing myself as a basketball player in the NBA level. And I thought about it a little bit this year when I was looking for a transfer, but at the same time, it would be hard for me to make that shift as a player and earn that shift as a player in the NBA level at the age of 33. I so I didn't put too much thought into it. So there were two times that I thought about it, I might say, towards the end.
Okay. The how what is the length of a Euro basketball career? So if you hit 34, I think that's what LeBron is right now. He's 34, right? Um he's right around there. So LeBron is like a freak of nature. He looks better now than he's ever been, but then you also have people you know, I think Wade is up there somewhere. I don't know exactly where he is, but then he's starting to look like someone took a baseball bat to his knees. He's looking good off the bench, but he's um, with the NBA. Like you start to see players start to kind of wind it down, or sometimes they just disappear completely after after 32. Sometimes if they have injuries, they just kind of go away. What like I feel like there's a little bit more longevity in um, the Euro basketball system, just because of probably like games played and things of that sort. But how do you feel about, like, as you're getting to 34, you kind of alluded to it, but you're not necessarily looking to wind down, but you're not going to have probably another 15 years left in the league either. So what's kind of your mindset as you kind of shift to a different part of your career here?
I think you know a high level basketball career, I think, can go up to you know 36, 37. There would be some lucky players that would make it to 40. I would show Navarro as an example. He's a Spanish player who actually celebrated his 20th year with Barcelona, and I think he's one of the like three or four players that left that is still playing. That's when EuroLeague started, basically since EuroLeague started. So he's one of those few players who is EuroLeague legend, basically. And I think that, at the top level, you could play until 36, 37. But if I want to continue in lower levels without the high competition requirements, I think I could play up to 40. Um, One thing that's the main difference between European basketball and NBA basketball is the frequency of the games and the importance of the games. And I think in NBA, everybody's now talking about how they can improve the look, the approach of people on the regular season games compared to the playoff games. And I think that's the one thing that's very different in Europe because um, let me put it this way: I will open my calendar whilst doing that too. Um, Today is the 6th. On Friday, we have a game in Barcelona, which is 3.5, 4 hours away from with flight here, from here. Then on the 10th, which is a Sunday, we have a game in Istanbul. Then next week, again on the 14th, we have a game in Istanbul. And then next time, we play Sunday in Bursa. Now, I know I can't compare most of the stuff that I'm saying in the NBA tempo as far as the game goes, but while the NBA is playing their games from November until March, April, if you're not making the playoffs, and from then on until June, our season starts officially with club in October and goes until June. And this includes um, the 30 regular season games of EuroLeague with playoff games. And we were counting with the coaches and the staff of the team beginning of the season. We would, without adding extra games in this run, if we make it to Final Four and if we make it to the final game and have a chance to win the EuroLeague championship, we would play 72 official games total, with Turkish league and playoffs included. And for us, every game counts. There's no off games. If you go to some road game with, let's say, tenth of our budget in the league, we cannot take a day off on the mindset, because if we show up soft, they're gonna kick our asses, and it's gonna cause a lot of things coming along the way. And it is a different mindset comparing to the NBA. I think this mindset is the biggest difference because when we go around on the court, every game counts. And the one thing that's a lot of different is how you said, there are a lot of players from America and from Europe that are coming into Turkey because Turkey is, as far as financial look goes in Europe, it is one of the best countries to play for European and American players. And a lot of players come here, use the exposure to go to better teams in EuroLeague or come back to the NBA. And a lot of players who play in smaller teams in Turkey, they're only waiting to play against the EuroLeague's best team, Fenerbahce, because that's the best exposure that they're going to get throughout the season. And they're waiting for that game, and they come out strong. I can tell you that much. It is a different mindset, and you have to be ready mentally, physically, every single game that we play, basically.
There's a physicality to European basketball. I think that maybe kind of the NBA has phased out over the past like 20 years. If you looked at the early 90s, there's a lot of bruising and a lot of people throwing elbows in, and some really like people really get into it. I feel like with the more and more rules that the NBA's kind of implemented in the last 10 years, where hand checking, it's kind of really brought out this just the spacing and the 3-point kind of revolution, if you will. Would you say that's accurate? Would you say there is a little bit more? You've played against uh, Americans, both in college and then
in national
in your
level.
international play. Would you say that's accurate, or am I off on that?
I I would say it is accurate, but at the same time, I don't want to like say that there's no physicality in the NBA. NBA has a lot of rules that prevents their stars, their players get
From getting hurt.
unnecessary impact. And okay, health and injuries, of course, as important in EuroLeague as it is in NBA, but at the same time, most of the rules do not apply to us in Europe. I think one of the things is the spacing and the 3 seconds rule, both on offense and defense. And I think that we took advantage of a lot of stuff that's not shown in the NBA because of the rules and use it as physicality. And I think that, yes, there are more bumps and bruises now in the EuroLeague, but I know that when the time comes and the dream team basically assembles, they're ready for that beating. They don't look at us and think the NBA rules are going to play out. They come and they start playing ready, and I think that shows the character that they have, and that shows that the physical readiness that they have with the opportunities that they have in the United States.
Okay. Um, so I've got a few short, quick hitter questions for you, and then I want to talk to you about entrepreneurship after that, and then we can kind of wind it down after that. But I'm going to have some hot takes for you that you can either answer or not answer, and you can let me know what you think about them. Okay.
Okay.
Um, I'm curious about who do you think an NBA player that you would match up with well? Who, if you could pick like any player in the NBA that you think you'd match up with well, who would it be?
Oh, that is a tough one. And I'm as I mentioned, I'm a 6'3", 1.5. Like I'm a point guard slash shooting guard with not much to shoot with. And so I have to check now, like with the current lineups, I can't think of any names because I know most of them will blow by me, and I wouldn't really survive on the offensive end also. But
Like T.J. McConnell on the Sixers, or Dellavedova,
they're
or someone
young
else who's like,
too. Like they're all like, when I look at it, they're like kids, 20s, 22s.
yep,
Even now, like when I look at my teammates or people around me, like being that age, I would give a lot of thought and money on returning to those ages and make sure that I would feel no pain when I'm jumping, or there is no pain and repercussions on landings and everything. So now when I think about it, with the NBA level, I would need a lot of conditioning and physical practice to cope up with anybody on that level. But I can tell you this much, no matter what happens, we get on the court and we try to put our best to beat one another. So I would take on anybody. I wouldn't be scared, but I know that it would be hard to survive to chase, let's say, CJ McCollum, Steph
yeah.
Curry, and any of those guys. When I start chasing them, I know that I would be out of breath in the fourth or fifth run, side by side.
I think the Kings might have someone. I don't know who. I'm going through the point guard list, and NBA point guard NBA is pretty point guard heavy right now, so that might be tough. But I think the Kings, they perennially have someone on their team that's like they need help.
Well, you mentioned
Actually,
Kings.
the Bulls need a point guard right now. So if you want
We were
to come over and help them,
as you mentioned the Kings. Bogdanovich
yes.
used to be the best play, one of the best players on the team that I'm playing for now, and it was not fun chasing him because he is what he's right now, 25, 26, I think, and he ended up he ended up having a great confidence, and it was I I'm gonna say it was a bitch to chase him around and try
Yeah.
to try to beat him on a basketball game, and it was a fun competition, and it's fun to actually like no matter as I mentioned the physicalities and this pain and this and that at the age of 34, it's always fun to realize no matter what happens, the mindset is ready to compete against whatever I end up coming up against, basically.
Yeah. The well, actually, speaking about the Kings and guards, Vince Carter is 40,
And he's
and
doing
he's
crazy
on the
moves
Kings. So like,
still.
he's still fast. He's still dunking, but I mean, I don't know. He's the fact that he's 40 in the NBA is really impressive.
You know what you
I
were mentioning about like how I was approaching in the game. I think that Vince Carter is a great example because he made enough highlights more than anybody. I think up to close to the level of Dominic Wilkins in dunking. But
mhm.
moving towards the end of the career, he's at the age of 40 right now. He showed up a side where he can shoot the ball and create a lot of advantage with using his physicality in a smart way, on defense and on other sides. I think that's a good example of improving yourself with the needed adjustments in the game of basketball.
He's been really interesting to watch because he's got that old man basketball game down
Yeah,
where like he doesn't necessarily he can still dunk on you, but he's not necessarily beating you off the dribble. He's not going to like necessarily blow by you, but he'll do these little tricky things, either like ball fakes or just like positioning himself in different places to make the right play. And
yeah,
that's one of those things you always see these guys do these highlight reels and then they blow their Derrick Rose is a good example of someone who was super athletic and then as his knees completely fall apart, not his fault, but he was super athletic and then as when his athleticism went away, he's had a hard time readjusting his game to get back to being something that's super useful on the floor without being his 100% healthy self. So seeing Vince Carter being able to do that with the age and losing some of the athleticism he used to have is really cool to see him continually edit his character and change his type of game on the court.
hmm
Um, cool. What team do you think your current? Oh, I don't. I'm not gonna say you, what team you guys think you could beat because I don't want to start out like an international incident and make people fly across the world for next year's preseason. But what team in the NBA would you guys like to match up with? Just like a one off exhibition game with one random team in the NBA, and you guys think you could put up a good fight?
uh, I think
Anyone?
no matter what, I think we would put up a good fight in any team in the NBA. I know that
Okay.
it would be harder, like it would depend on the rules and the length of the game. If we play in NBA rules, of course, it's going to be harder to survive in the game. But
Mm-hmm.
I would want to match up against the Spurs.
Okay.
With Ginobili being a lefty, I have been following them a lot more than any other team in the NBA, and knowing Popovich and the type of basketball that they're playing, I would want to feel how that feels, even though I'm on the opponent's side and not going to enjoy all those passing that's whizzing by my ears on any side. But I would want to play against the Spurs.
Death by 1,000 passes. Um, let's see what else we have. Is there if I had $10,000 and I told you I'd give you $10,000 if you have to beat one NBA player. This is sort of like the matchup one, but a little bit different. What NBA player are you confident you could beat?
I wouldn't know all
You're
of the
like, I don't
NBA
want to
players.
make that.
I wouldn't know all of the NBA players, but if I want to bet and try to win a one-on-one game, I want to play against Steph. I would want to play against Steph Tony Parker. Uh, I'm not gonna mention CJ because I played against with his brother 2 years in a row. So I liked his game, but at the same time, I know that it would be also tough to play against him. But yes, I would say, you know, again, I would add Ginobili to the list. Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Steph Curry.
Okay.
I'm not
So
mentioning.
you'd play them. You wouldn't promise that you'd beat them.
Um, I have I don't follow that much enough NBA to mention a name that I could beat.
Okay. Campaign on the Bulls is currently, I think, in a boot, and he's the Bulls are bad. They're really bad. They won like 3 games all year, I think. Um, so I think those are my quick hits. I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship because we've gone back and forth a little bit about this
Mhm.
in the past, and you kind of alluded to it with both, as you're getting to the back end of the career, but also just kind of that mindset that you've taken and you've built yourself, you know, uh, basketball is, for better or worse, an entrepreneurial type game where you're, you can think of it like you're an independent contractor and you're selling your services on a yearly basis to each specific team, and then you're trying to, figure out what that team needs and provide them that in the best way possible.
Yeah.
How have you kind of come around to entrepreneurship both on your own? Like, is that just kind of a natural outgrowth of where your mindset's at? Are there actual projects you're working on? Where's your head at with that right now?
It started with like some kind of curiosity that I had from the beginning of childhood with basketball. And at the same time, with the college degree that I got, I studied business and administration at Carroll College. I think that helped. That was kind of like in the back of my head that I could do something with it when the basketball is over as far as professional career goes. And at the time I didn't know what, but over the years I started finding opportunities on what to do. And in 2011, me, my brother, and my father formed a company called Guler Legacy. And we basically, it's a sports organization company where we share our experience, our knowledge of basketball with kids in summer camps. And now we started share it in other aspects of life, in corporate life, with some kind of workshops and educational programs for corporate employees, and at the same time for high school students who are athletes at the same time, who need some kind of guidance to continue both their school life and be successful in sports as well. That was our first entrepreneurial experience. We've been doing that since 2011, as I said. Since then, we ran seven summer camps in Turkey, and we've been blessed with great partners in the run to make sure that we're doing the best possible basketball camp in Turkey. Now, at the beginning of our conversation, I kind of mentioned that I've been to some basketball camps in the United States, and two of them were Michael Jordan's camps. One in Emerson, Illinois, I think outside of Chicago, and the one was in Santa Barbara. And I think going to those camps and seeing Michael Jordan face to face, being on the same court, trying to shoot free throws when he's passing you the ball, those type of experiences stick with you from childhood. And I think that I wanted to recreate some type of influence like that. I know that I'm not at the level of Michael Jordan in any way possible, but not only as a basketball player, he was an example to me. I think from the business side and how he look at things, I took a lot of things from him as an example also. So I try to recreate the basketball camp that I've been to in Turkey. And while doing that, we also find some open opportunities in social enterprises, because from the first years we met with some kids from other cities of Turkey who are less fortunate in opportunities, who are less fortunate in finding places to play basketball. And we create a system where so far I would say we have around 700 kids who came to our basketball camps. Half of them, more than half of them, came from 20 to 25 different cities of Turkey without paying any kind of fee on transfers, transportation, and coming to the camp and being a part of the camp. Um, so I think that we create a good balance between kids with somewhat of a scholarship and at the same time kids who are coming to pay their way in to these camps, and that 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 created an opportunity for us to embrace the fact that a kid from Istanbul and a kid from Hakkari, which is on the most southeastern side of Turkey, right on the border of Syria and Iraq. I think, finding that energy of 14-year-old, 15-year-old kids being a basketball player on the court and knowing that basketball does not need any kind of translation to play,
Mm-hmm.
that is the effect that gives us pride to do more and more stuff over the years. And I think that it is a great gem for me to think about, to cherish, and to improve over the years, even when the basketball career is over.
With that's all. Like I didn't know about the foundation and the scholarship aspect of the camps, and that's pretty
Yeah,
cool. As far as like the actual camps, um are they like week long camps? Are they longer than that? Are they shorter than that? Are they like weekend camps? Like is it
they're
I would assume from the camps I've been to they're 1 week, but I don't
yeah,
know
it's a week long
if
camp.
that's the same thing.
That was our experience in the past. So we try to do that as much as possible. We start on a Sunday and end on a Friday. So make sure the parents have a chance to leave the kids and pick up the kids at the same time. And it is great. It's packed with basketball fundamentals. We try to find the best coaches that are available in the system in Turkey, and we are blessed that you know two of our head coaches of the camp right now has been with us from the beginning, and I think that that's a great energy that we created. And I think while we're mentioning a lot that this is a family business with the experience that we're sharing from my father, from my brother, and from myself, I think that we had a chance to increase the dimensions of the legacy with the coaches that are joining the program, with the volunteers that are joining the program, with the kids who are coming to the camp from different cities and different backgrounds. I think that that's the legacy that we're trying to share, is the idea of the good fundamentals of basketball, good being a good person on and off the court, and make sure that everybody's having fun, um, and go home happy and satisfied.
Oh, I think there's something about meeting these people that you think um, are like gods. Like meeting Michael Jordan and realizing he's a person. It sounds kind of maybe obvious, but there creates a what's the word I'm looking for? It creates a little bit of hope, but it also creates uh, it breaks the facade that these are like special
Mhm.
people. Like Michael Jordan obviously is like a very, very, very good basketball player. He was born, he's got certain physical characteristics that, let him do the things that he was able to do. But he's also just another person. And I think that's one of the things that I've found when I've, met some of the people that I've looked up to in entrepreneurship and business and online work, that I think is really, really helpful, for you, like showing to to students and athletes uh, wherever that, like, hey, first of all, like it's about more than just basketball, but second of all, like, like we've got this, this family history, and we've got these things that we've done. But I also, you can share your story, and you can say, I came back to Turkey and I was only making, like this amount of money per month, but I did it to take the opportunity and to invest on myself and bet on myself and continually make those um, bets, and eventually get to where you are
Yeah,
today. And I think that's really, really important to show people that that's possible.
and on the other hand, okay, we're doing a lot of partnership with the university that we're holding the basketball camps, and with other brands and companies that are helping us along the way. But at the same time, the experience and the plans that we're sharing with all of these kids and coaches and everybody who's a part of this, I must say that until it becomes a sustainable business, I'm financing most of the situation. And I think that more than um, with sharing the experience, I think that investing in something like this and investing to a future where maybe one or more players come out of this program is also one of the hopes that I have. And that's one of the things that I'm looking up to and I'm excited about when my career is over professionally.
That's cool. I like that a lot. One of the things that you're seeing NBA players start to do, and they have, it's a little bit different environment in the U.S., but you're starting to see some of these guys take like their, these huge followings that they have on social media and, personally, and, beyond just endorsements, beyond just, back in the day, Michael Jordan or Grant Hill would, get in a Sprite commercial or something like that. You're starting to see a lot more athletes um, either take like equity positions in companies, or start, like owning companies outright. I know we've talked in the past about, different VC opportunities and things like that. I was curious, and I don't know if we even, mentioned that this would be, part of the discussion, but I'm curious, are there opportunities like that in Turkey? Like, is that something that like you're like looking at as well beyond just the basketball camps? As all the things that you're doing is growing, and it becomes more accessible to be a part of companies rather than just being like a, a spokesperson for it, like it has in the past.
Well, I'm always looking for options and opportunities where to take Güler legacy in the future. But at the same time, with basketball being my first priority to play, I'm waiting for my options for the end of my career on where to bring it as far as the company goes. And I know that in Turkey, if I want to grow or if I want to increase my exposure as far as basketball camps or other stuff goes, I need to work with a lot of different companies, and I need to maybe have some kind of relationship with foundations and federations of basketball in Turkey. And I'm looking into it, my options, I'm planning along the way, but at the same time, I'm taking my time so I don't take my priorities and I don't take my eyes away from what my priorities are at this point. On the other side, since again 2011 and 2012, I have been actively be a part of being an angel investor in Turkey. And since I think our talk year and a half, 2 years ago, I think at total right now I have 12 investments that I'm a part of financially and as a mentorship. And I've put myself in a position in Turkey and Turkish startup ecosystem in a place where I'm looking for opportunities to make sure the ecosystem itself grows and make sure that Turkey creates a lot of stories where um, nice exits happen. Now, I at the same time know directly from basketball, without failures, there's not much success happens. So I'm also hoping to see a lot of failures along the way too. So a lot of people can learn from it. And that's the position that I'm in right now. And as you said before, a lot of NBA players trying to, diverse their portfolio, diverse their financial gains. They're looking into angel investing, and they're looking into um, the things, the value that they can add to some of these ecosystem players. Because, when you look into the top players in the NBA, including Kobe Bryant, who is a great speaker in the cartoons and in the productions that he's doing, is working in a lot of production about sports. You're looking into LeBron James being vocal in Nike and its decisions, and a lot of other stuff that he's doing in the startup ecosystem. And I know also, Steph Curry with Under Armour, he's vocal, and at the same time he's looking into the investments in the startup business. So I think that that's a good example, and I think for a lot of athletes in Turkey to look into it, we need a lot of exit stories that happening, because without them, not many people will join from the investment opportunity side of things. And I'm hoping that I'm one of those guys who is paving the way for more people to come.
That's I think you've aptly named your company then, Guler Legacy. So
Yeah.
you're hopefully building something here, and it's cool to see kind of the start of it. So I think those are all the questions I've got for you. Anything you wish I would have asked you?
Um, you can ask me when
Oh,
we're gonna run an ultra marathon.
yeah, that is a good question. When are we going to run an ultra marathon?
Let's wait 3-4 years for it.
Okay.
No, one thing I might add, I have been following with, as I said in the beginning, some ups and downs you had in your business side, but at the same time, I think what you have been doing with the ultra marathons that you're running and all the schools that you've been building all over the world, I think that that's a great cause for you to, one, meet a lot of new people along the way. One of them is myself, and I'm glad to meet you, even though we haven't met personally. I'm hoping to have you as a guest in Turkey sometime soon. And two, I think that you're doing something good for your body, even though I think running in Antarctica is not good for your body in no way possible. I saw the video and I was just like, he should be regretting his decisions at this point. But no, I
So
think
yeah.
you should be proud of yourself for what you have been doing, and keep up the good work. And hoping that there's an Ironman event here in Turkey. I don't know if you're interested in
Okay.
Ironman, but I know that
Okay.
I know that there should be some ultra marathon and some kind of similar stuff in Turkey. We will look into it and have you as a guest. That where one, we can hang out, go to basketball games. You can come to my game if possible, and have a chance for you to see Istanbul, one of the best cities in the world. And two, maybe you're running an ultra marathon for a similar cause that we can create in Turkey.
All right. I like the challenge. Let's talk about it. Iron Man is still undone on my impossible list, so I need to do that at one point or another. So this is awesome, man. Thank you for jumping on the call. You mind telling people where they can find out uh, more about you if they want to follow you on Twitter, Facebook, or website?
On Twitter, on all social media, it's my name and last name, Sinan Guler, SINANGULER. I think if you add a 32 to that, that's my YouTube channel. Most of the stuff that I'm doing right now mainly are in Turkish, as you end up seeing most of it. But at the same time, I tend to share once in a while some English content on it also. Those are the places that you can find me, and you can find a lot of the content that I put out. I'm on the construction part of rebuilding sinanguler.com, with the content being both in English and in Turkish, so that I can share a lot of stuff for possible viewers on the other side of the world. And that's it.
Cool, man. And then Guler Legacy.
And gulerlegacy.com is the website, and at the same time, I think all of the social media names are Guler legacy also.
All right, I'll put those in the show notes so everybody can easily get to those. Awesome, man. Well, let's talk more about a potential something in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for finally doing this. I know we've been trying for months now to do this, and it's finally good to sync up.
Hey, you and I both show that anything is possible. So I'm very happy to have this conversation with you. Thank you for making me part of the your impossible team, and thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Let's do it again sometime
All right.
soon. All right, there we go. Episode number 2 in the books. If you guys are liking the podcast, I know I say it every episode, but it helps us out a ton if you leave a review. So head on over to iTunes or Google Play, leave a review, and tell everybody what you think about the podcast. It's the number one way more people find out about us, and it's also how we can reach more people and help them change their mindset in order to push their limits and do something impossible. If you guys want to support the show, you can do it in a couple different ways. Cold shower therapy. You can download the app, do 5 minutes, cold showers, 30 days. See if it changes your mindset. I guarantee it will change your mindset and change your life. You can download the app and you can join thousands of other people that are doing the cold shower therapy challenge. You can try to beat the streak, but at this point, it's over 1,200. You got some work to do. So you can check that app out. It's a number one way to change your mindset. It's absolutely free. Go check it out. Also, MoveWell App. If you're an athlete, you're trying to get stronger, you're trying to recover from an injury, or you're just an office worker who's trying to hurt less throughout the day because you're sitting down all the time, check out MoveWellApp.com. It's got a bunch of routines that are all under 15 minutes that you can do in your living room to help you feel better, get stronger, have less pain, and if you're injured, you can recover from injuries faster. This is the app that I wish that I had when I got hurt, and I didn't have it, so I built it, and it's free to download, free to try out. It's a couple dollars a month if you want to subscribe for some of the extra. It's a couple dollars a month if you want to subscribe for the extra routines that we have available, but it's your personal mobility coach. You can take it with you anywhere, and it's awesome. It's MoveWellApp.com. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, keep pushing your limits, do something impossible, and of course, boom.